They told you marriage was a partnership, a 50-50 proposition, equal share, equal say, equal everything. They told you the secret was a simple equation, a happy wife equals a happy life. And maybe, for a while, you believed it. You followed the script. You became collaborative. You discussed everything. You kept score. Until one day you woke up feeling less like a husband and more like an employee in your own home. A manager of chores, a negotiator of affections. Because somewhere along the way, you stopped being her husband and you started being her partner. The modern world, with the best of intentions, rebranded marriage. It was no longer a covenant, a sacred bond. It was a partnership. It sounded smart. It sounded fair. Two autonomous adults, splitting bills, splitting chores, splitting power. A perfectly balanced ledger. But no one told men what gets split next. Respect. You see, the partnership model was imported directly from the corporate world. It treats love like a business arrangement, not a blood oath. It measures contribution, it negotiates roles, it keeps a meticulous score. And when you start keeping score in love, the relationship doesn't die in a blaze of glory. It dies by arithmetic, a slow, quiet suffocation, by 1,000 tiny transactions. Partnership replaced the language of duty with the language of deals. A wife became a co-worker in the household economy, instead of a sacred counterpart in a divine order. So where did this idea come from? This seismic shift didn't happen by accident. The word partner entered the marital lexicon during the late 1960s, the age of social revolutions. It was born from noble intentions, a cry for equality, for freedom, for fairness. But behind the slogans, powerful systems saw an opportunity. If you can convince both men and women to work full-time, you double the labour force, and you double the tax base. Governments, corporations, advertisers, they all benefited. The result? Men came home exhausted. Women came home exhausted. And children were left to raise themselves on the glow of screens. This wasn't liberation. It was a grand reallocation of energy, of time, and most dangerously, of purpose. And slowly, insidiously, the man's role eroded. He was no longer the protector, the cornerstone. He was now a participant, not the head of the family, but a helper in the household. And then came the feminist rewrite. Its early phase sought justice, and that was a necessary and noble cause. But its later waves did something else. They turned men into negotiators of their own masculinity. The message was clear. Don't lead, collaborate. Don't decide, discuss. Don't be strong, be sensitive. And so, men dimmed their fire. They sheathed their instincts, thinking it would bring peace. But that peace never came. Because a profound truth was ignored. Most women don't want a mirror. They want a mountain, someone to lean on, not someone competing with them for emotional leadership. As this narrative took hold, men stopped defining themselves by virtue, by strength, by vision. They started defining their worth by a single, fragile metric: how happy they kept their partner. And that is not love. That is a performance. And every performance has a final curtain. Look back through the dust of history. Every civilization that collapsed, that faded into obscurity, had one pattern in common: the systematic weakening of the masculine spine. When a man can no longer lead his own household, he will not lead his community. When he forgets how to protect his family, he forgets how to protect his nation. The language of partnership sounds equal, but nature itself is not equal. It is complementary. A ship needs both a captain and a navigator. A home needs both direction and nurture. Without a clear structure, the storm takes the wheel. When men abdicated their leadership to avoid conflict, women were forced to lead out of sheer survival instinct. And when survival runs the marriage, affection, tenderness, and passion disappear. Let's be clear, women don't win in this system either. They end up exhausted, resentful, and lonely, secretly craving the safety and security they were never meant to provide alone. Now, look around you. Men have built a world where they can lose half their assets, their homes, their children, for following the modern rulebook. A world where they gain no respect for being passive. That is the ultimate price of turning marriage into a management exercise. When a man accepts partnership over leadership, the entire balance of the relationship tilts. He makes himself replaceable. Because a partner is easy to swap out for a new model. A husband is not. This model erases the essential polarity, the magnetic attraction between masculine and feminine. Without that polarity, there is no spark. Without that spark, there is only cold obligation, two people coexisting under one roof, but never truly connecting. The message was, step back, let her lead. But leadership is not oppression. It is orientation. It is providing a direction. And when the masculine loses its orientation, the feminine loses its sense of security. That is why today, in hushed tones, in confidence, even modern women whisper the same truth. I don't want a man I have to lead. I want a man who can lead me, a man who does not follow me into confusion. So how do we heal this? How do we pull marriage back from the brink of this corporate abyss? It begins when men reclaim order, not control, not domination, but direction. It begins when you stop trying to be liked and start commanding respect. When you learn to speak truth, even when your voice shakes the very air in the room. When you make decisions, not to feed your ego, but to protect what is sacred, your family, your home, your wife's peace. A wife does not want to be your project partner. She wants to feel your presence. She needs to know in her bones that if the world outside collapses, you will still be standing tall, an unshakable wall between her and the chaos. That is not arrogance. That is masculine stewardship. Let this be your call to legacy. Your wife is not your partner. She is your wife, your sacred counterpart. She is the one who carries your name, not your negotiation table. The home is not a democracy where every vote is equal. It is a harmony. Two different instruments, playing two different parts, tuned to one another to create a single, beautiful song under one rhythm. If you call her partner, you give her equality in burden, but you steal from her the gift of grace. If you call her wife, you give her the safety she craves, and in return, she will give you a devotion you cannot earn any other way. Men, your grandfathers built nations, crossed oceans, and tamed frontiers with this truth etched into their souls. They weren't perfect, but they understood structure. They knew a home with two captains sinks in the first storm. A home with one reliable compass always finds its way. Reclaim your compass. Lead again, not with the bluster of ego, but with the quiet wisdom of love. Because your wife doesn't need another partner in confusion. She needs a husband, and it is time to remember who you are.